Welcome to Science Talks, everybody. My name's Tim Perriard. I teach biology here along with Dr. Matt. So I'm just going to introduce Dr. Matt real quick, and then he'll take the show away for us. By the way, if you are somebody that's an expert in some area of science, or you know of somebody, then we're always looking for potential speakers in the future for our lecture series here, and you can contact me. I'll be around afterwards if you just want to maybe get my email or something like that. So, all right, so Dr. Matt Douglas has been here a little bit longer than I have, just a couple years. But Dr. Matt has completed his Bachelor's of Arts in English and Anthropology from the University of Michigan, his Master's of Science in Aquatic Biology from Eastern Michigan University, and his PhD in Entomology and Biophysical Ecology from the University of Kansas. He is currently a professor of biology here at GRCC. Dr. Matt, as his students like to call him, currently teaches animal and plant biology along with anatomy and physiology courses. His areas of expertise are entomology, specifically monarch butterflies, comparative animal biology, evolutionary biology, and authoring. And he has been published in many scientific journals, including Science and Evolution. So please help me in thanking Dr. Matt for coming here and sharing some knowledge with us today.
Okay, everyone can hear me, I'm assuming, right? Otherwise, I'll take this off and my professor voice will generate all the way to the back of the room, I promise. So if I talk too loud, you just do this. If I'm talking too long, you do this, okay? Just two motions, we'll get through this together. So I put everything I could throw at you into this PowerPoint. So if I'm getting really long and I see the little kids going to sleep here, then I know it's too long. So I'm going to tell you about the cues that monarchs in the Americas use to migrate. So we have three species I'll talk about. I'll talk about the cues first, but I wanted to play a word by you. It's ZEITGEBER. Do you guys ever hear of that? I never had before, but it's a German word that means time giver or timekeeper. And what it has to do with is an environmental agent that controls your life. So photo period, you know, sunrise to sunset, tells you when to get up and when to go to bed. The revolution of the earth around the sun tells you how long the year is, what the seasons are, what to do. We just went through a bad period where we fell back right in time, and everybody got up and they thought they could get an extra hour's sleep. That didn't happen, right? And exactly what happened is your circadian rhythm was destroyed by this stupid thing that we do every year. So if you want to be synchronized with the environment, you have to pay attention to the environment. And you evolved as one-cell creatures all the way up to you with cues that we can use here. So for example, here's the sun, right? We now know that we go around the sun, even though some people in California think that it's a flat Earth, and we don't. We do know that. We have an Earth that spins on its axis and wobbles a little bit up here, this precession of the equinoxes, as we call it. And that gives us our day lengths, our photo period. And as we go around the sun at exactly the same angle, you can see that when we have summer up here, we have winter down below, and vice versa, all the way through our period here. Well, these are all clues that tell you how you're going to react. So summertime, you feel pretty good. March, you don't. Fall, you feel kind of iffy, right? Winter, you feel like, oh, God, when's it over? So butterflies have to adapt to this kind of thing, too. You also have to adapt to a changing electromagnetic field. So the magnetic field around the Earth actually protects us in a way from some of the ionizing radiation of the sun. But these field lines here start over here, and they go through the entire Earth and around, and they are penetrating us right now as we speak. So we may have receptors for these electromagnetic fields, maybe we don't, but the fact is they could be anywhere. They're not like an eye or an ear that can pick up sounds or visual cues. They go right through us. So we could conceivably be one gigantic magnet and orientate ourselves north and south in this magnetic field. So these are ZEITGEBERs. These are things that control you your whole life. Other things that control you are long-term things. So for example, you probably don't remember this, but 14,000 years ago, you had about a mile of ice over Grand Rapids, and it was slowly pushing southward under the mass of it. And down here, you had glaciers and glacial till all the way down into the southeastern states over Kentucky, et cetera. The biodiversity of Michigan was, what do you think? Probably near zero, right? And now we have the most diverse trees in the entire country. We have everything. But back then, there were no monarchs. Monarchs couldn't get this far up because obviously there was no milkweed, and there's no milkweed to lay their eggs on, so they couldn't go very far. Well, here's what it looked like back then. Over here, we have the drainage pattern of the Mississippi River completely changed. We have spruce tree forests over here. We don't have really broadleaf forests like we have up here in Michigan until we get way down here. And out here in the west, you see these huge lakes? They were as big as the Great Lakes. This one, Bonneville, is now just the Great Salt Lake. That thing was as big as Lake Michigan and deeper. And then these are called pluvial lakes, so when they would drain suddenly, it would just be a total washout on the plains over here. So they just washed everything out. The western monarchs are out there now, but they weren't there probably back then, 14,000 years ago. We have 3 species of monarchs. So we have one up here in Jamaica and Haiti and the island of Hispaniola, and these are called Cleophili. We have an ancestor down here that gave rise to Cleophili, and then we have an ancestor over here that gave rise to ours, Plexippus, and the other one over here, ERIPPUS. So can you guys see the difference between these 3? You can. You're supposed to say no. You're supposed to say they look alike, right? Well, this one you can tell it's got really pretty hind wings. But these 2 down here, can you really tell the difference in that? It's kind of hard, really. This one's a little lighter, this one's a little darker. But this is our eastern one. This is the one from South America, and this one is from the islands of Hispaniola. So we call Cleophili the Jamaican monarch. We call ERIPPUS the South American monarch. We call Plexippus, that's ours, right, in our neck of the woods. So 3 monarchs, they obviously came from some common ancestor. In this talk, maybe we can figure out kind of where they came from. So Stephen Reppert and his lab have figured out that the DNA comparison of eastern monarchs and western monarchs and monarchs that exist over in Polynesia, et cetera, all the way to New Zealand are really born of the same stock. So this is a rooted tree, we call it, and this is a consensus tree where everybody agrees by statistical methods that this would be the best tree. So look, over here, this group here went over to South America, Central America, Belize. These became kind of non-migratory. Over here, these are all migrants, and they are migrants over here, even in New Zealand and Australia, even though they're relatively new immigrants there, they do migrate. Not as far as ours, but they do migrate. Over here, they've gone over to Spain, Morocco, and Africa, and they're invading that continent as well. So these guys are highly vagal, as we say. Here's ERIPPUS over here, kind of off the beaten path, but nonetheless fairly close related to our group down here. So our group, the Plexippus group, has gone pretty much everywhere you can find milkweed. So if it's in Africa and you bought Plexippus over there, they would take over the continent probably, which would be a good thing, right? We think. So I wrote up here, it's an opportunistic species. Wherever you put it, it will grow, as long as you have Asclepius. So they move around a lot. The ranges are expanding in Europe and Africa. And our subspecies here is apparently the only one that has this phenomenal long-distance migration, which means it flies from Michigan and northern Ontario and all the way across the northern tier states, and it flies all the way down to Mexico, Michoacan. And the beauty of that is that it's never seen those places before, and it's not going to see them again. So I have to ask a question. Is this just a temporal range expansion? Like in the summertime, things are good and they can go north, and then they die out when the weather gets bad? Or is this a true migration? So we argue about this because we like to argue. So I don't really know. There is no good definition of what a migration is. In our case of our butterflies, they come up from Mexico and they kind of go generation by generation all the way up to Grand Rapids and then beyond, and then we can squeeze off 4 or 5 generations, and then upon the cues that I showed you of sunlight, azimuthal position of the sun and things like that, they start to migrate down in waves. So we know that there are a number of different groups of monarchs that migrate. They don't all do it at one time. All right, so plexippus, I would say is a true migrator, but is that the only one? No, we have this little beauty right here, the painted lady. Probably can't say that anymore, but this is the painted lady, VANESSA CARDUI. It does migrate too. It's in the same family as monarchs. It flies up every year from the south. In this country here, in Europe, it flies from Africa all the way to Europe. And it's an incredible flyer. It flies way, way up there, way above the clouds. They didn't even know it migrated until about 15 years ago when they finally tracked it by radar. There were clouds of these butterflies going north and south. Here's one we have here in our butterfly garden. This is the red admiral. If you pay attention this May, you will see these butterflies everywhere. They're one of the first butterflies to appear. They're migratory in Africa to Europe as well, and they're migratory down here. So these are true migrators. Why doesn't anybody pay attention to them? It's because they're not monarchs, right? In the US, monarch is synonymous with butterfly. So if it's a butterfly, people say, was it a monarch? Yeah, probably was, you know? But we have a lot of species of butterflies. Here we actually have like 100 species. This little cutie, Nathalis iole, is a little tiny sulfur. It flies up from Kansas and Missouri all the way up to Traverse City along the lake. The lake shore is a great flyway for these butterflies that migrate. But it's intolerant to frost, so everything dies at the end of the year. It just doesn't make it. So I want you to know that there's all kinds of intergrades between actual migration and range expansions. Monarchs have lost the ability, apparently, to migrate at certain spots where they've actually migrated to, and others have gained it back. So we're not sure what the gene complexes are that actually control all this. We do know that the environmental cues actually help. So here's your monarch here. This is our plexippus, right? It goes all the way north up here to Ontario and all the way across. This is the eastern version of it, and this is the western version. We now know that this is one massive species, but we know that down here they don't migrate. That butterflies flying up here in the fall migrate down here and go all the way down to Cuba, and maybe they go down to Cancun as well. We don't know for sure, but they do migrate, and when they migrate, they mix with populations that are local that apparently don't migrate. So if they're coming in at the same appropriate time, then they can mate and they can lay eggs and have lots of babies. But in the fall right now, today is very special. What's the date today? 12th. Right now, they're arriving in Michoacan, Mexico, by the tens of millions. You know, it's like clouds of locusts flying towards these mountains. It's got to be unbelievable. I've not seen that. Class and I have only seen it when, you know, they're all dying down there. But here they are. So we have this one species that we thought was two originally. It's just one. And they all fly down here to overwinter. Now, down south, all the way through here, are monarchs as well, and they're not migratory. They don't migrate. They do migrate up the mountains in the dry season, and they come back down. So is that a migration? I don't know, but you got to think of origins here, right? You got to think, where did they get the ability to migrate? Was it an altitudinal thing at one time going up and back to the mountains? Because that's what they do over here in Michoacan. These are mountains right across there, and they're resting on the southwestern facing surfaces, and they migrate. But just south of them, they don't. It's like they don't quite mix over there. So I have all these words here, but we're going to leave that out. I'm just going to tell you that they go down to Mexico, and they go up to the mountains at 10,000 feet with the same kinds of trees we have here in Michigan, the same genera, the same smells, everything. And they go there to roost that have been there for millennia. You know, it wasn't that we discovered them. The Native Americans down there knew of these guys a long time ago. And they had holidays up for them. Nobody bothered to ask them, do you know where the monarchs are? You don't have to have a picture. Do you know this person, right? They never found them. So it's not that we found them, we rediscovered them like we always do. So we have all these migratory monarchs here in different parts of the world, New Zealand, Australia. In Africa, I'm told that they also do migration. So either they had it always or they lost it and regained it, one or the other. So here we are, monarch migration in America. All the way through here is our monarch, right? Down through here is our monarch, but not migratory. All the way down here is our monarch, but not migratory. And then down here below the Pantanal of Brazil, all these guys are ERIPPUS, and they're migrating this way down here. These over here is Cleophily, they don't migrate. But I want you to pay attention to where Mexico City is and over here, because this is the 19th north parallel. And we believe now that these guys evolved right up here, but during the ice ages that I showed you, these land masses were all connected. So the ancestral monarch species may have looked like Cleophily, and it may have branched off after the ice ages stopped and became isolated, and all these different groups here became two distinct species. This was about 2 million years ago, we think. So here it is here. The rarest one, I've never seen it. I've always wanted to see it, but then there was trouble in Haiti and Dominican Republic. Probably it's going to cool off, and then I'll be able to go there and see the last monarch on the earth, right? But it's a very uncommon species, so I think it's listed on the CITES program there. But over here, look, here's Mexico City, and it's at the same latitude basically as this. The Isthmus of Panama only formed a couple million years ago, so these things weren't even connected. And these things are only not connected because of the rising water, because we're now in an interglacial. So the interglacial, and now we have global warming on top of that, but it's pretty warm, right? In Brazil, these are regular monarchs up here, all the way up here, but down here from the Amazon to the Pantanal, all the way through Paraguay, and then down through the backbone of the Andes of Argentina, they have monarchs that migrate. But they also migrate through monarchs that don't migrate. So we've seen these things interbreed down there, and we don't know where they go. So this is a big mystery. If anybody wants a PhD and you want to do something down here, Argentina is a great place. There's a Yungas forest system down there right next to the mountains. And somewhere down here, this is all wine country, by the way, somewhere down there are these monarchs roosting over their winter. Now it's weird because they're going south. Which way do ours go? South. But when you go south here, you go to your favorite clothing shop, Patagonia down here, right? And it's cold. So it's not likely that that was a highly adaptive thing. It's probable that they went up to the Yungas area here and they overwinter, but as I said, nobody knows where that happens. So ERIPPUS appears to be largely non-migratory, but it migrates from the Pantanal. The Pantanal, by the way, is the one that's on fire. It was the Amazon, it's gone south. Now the Pantanal is on fire. All the monarchs go up there. I have a friend up there, his name is Lucas, and he tells me that every summer there's a ton of monarchs. And when I first went there, I said, Lucas, there aren't any monarchs here. He said, oh, yes, there are. So he was a microbiologist, and he's the one who figured out that these guys probably migrate kind of south, along with a university professor from Western Michigan University. I'll talk about a little later here. But they fly down in April, May, and the last time we were down there, we saw a number of monarchs doing the same kind of cues that were up here, right? The position of the sun, you know, the geomagnetic cues, and they're flying south. And yet there's some that are stationary that aren't migrating. Apparently they can breed throughout the year there. Oops, went too fast. So Stephen Malcolm is the one who has seen these mass migrations. I hope that someday he finds all these roosts up there. They gotta be up there somewhere, right? Here's a butterfly caterpillar. Now, if you know monarch caterpillars, you know there's one band that's missing. In ours, it's kind of white. If you remember, there's a white band there. These don't have that. And these are feeding on a vine in Argentina that grows up in the vineyards. So the vineyards are kind of a closed-off system for these monarchs, and there was a lot of them down there. Here's a brand new one. Now, does that not look like our monarch, seriously? It'd be hard to tell it apart. And this one was not migrating. The old ones coming down would interbreed with these young ones, and then they would continue flying through, migrating through. So it's a mixed environment. I don't want you to think that migration is all or none. It's not. You know, in South Florida, the same kind of situation. These are the quebradas up here. These are like outwashes or plains that wash out with the water and river systems. And they fly down these things, and they ride the thermals, and they're going south, and again, we don't know where they go. But it's beautiful country. I encourage you to go there. So we have 3 migrants here in this country. Now, I'm not going to give you all this. I'm just going to tell you a few things, okay? I promise. So juvenile hormone is a thing that makes you young. I wish we had juvenile hormone, because then we would stay like we are forever, right? These things, juvenile hormone, keeps them young butterflies or young immatures. When it stops, it's one of the clues that says it's time to migrate. Let's diapause, let's, that's reproductively, and let's start flying south. We'll pick up the clues from the sun, the magnetic field of the earth, and let's go south. They increase their fat supplies. They take in sugars from the plants, which is why you've got to plant more plants this year, right? And they make these fats, and fats are very efficient for flight because you get over 2 times as many calories per gram as you do from sugar. So this is a collagen fiber. This is used in us too, and it's for flexibility and efficiency of flight. They have bigger wings usually. They're more angular, although no one's ever tested to see if they can actually glide better. You know, the wing shape and the muscle efficiency is much greater. The gliding proficiency may improve, or they just may be gliding more. And finally, you have navigational skills that develop. I'm starting to read the sky. I'm reading the UV light. I'm reading polarized light. I'm incorporating all this stuff into my little tiny brain down to like 4 cells that say, okay, I got it. I know where I am, and I'm going to fly south, okay? Actually, it's kind of southwest. So there's compass adaptations. Now, they have the ability to read the azimuthal position of the sun. That's the horizontal position of the sun as it's relative to north. They can use UV polarized light. You know, you put your sunglasses on, you screen that stuff out. They need to see that because it's like a band in the sky. And even on pretty much overcast days, they can follow the UV band and figure out where southwest is. So whenever they're released at 10 o'clock or 4 o'clock, they're going to pick a direction based on these factors here. These are cryptochrome proteins that are sensitive to UV light, blue light. And as I said, you know, they use all these things. Here's what Stephen Reppert has done at the University of Massachusetts. Now, this is an easy cartoon because sunlight is going into the main retina. You know that butterflies have big eyes, right? Well, on the top, this dorsal rim, they can pick up ultraviolet light, and over here, that's plain polarized, and down here, it's ultraviolet light, blue and green, so they can see color vision, but not all like we do. So they can see ultraviolet light of plant parts, you know, find out where the honey path is to go to the flower. And these are the circadian rhythms up here in the antenna. So you got to integrate all these things, right? You got to integrate your circadian rhythm, which is, you know, roughly, you know, 10 hours or 12 hours, whatever it happens to be. And you got to integrate all the input from up here. And underneath it all, these guys over in Massachusetts figured out all these pathways that are interconnected with the brain to give this butterfly direction. Is it perfect? No. Because, you know, I can't find my way out of a parking lot. I have no map genes. I have nothing going for myself. These guys could outdo me any day of the year. So I'm going to pass over on this one because it gets a little complicated. But basically, they have separated their eye into very special regions, some to pick up visual cues, some to pick up ultraviolet cues. And then the antenna are circadian rhythms. They are measuring the rhythm. And then they're all feeding into the brain and saying, this is the time of day. This is how you should fly. As I said, it's not perfect. So we found out, this is at Grand Rapids Community College, right? Some of my students here let some monarchs go this year. Unfortunately, they weren't the best flyers, but if you let them go from the top of our parking ramp over here, or over a lake like Reed's Lake, or Lake Michigan, or anywhere else where they don't have good orientation, because they can't see like you. Their eyes are a little different. They're really good at speed and finding things. They're not so good at resolution far away. So when you release them here, they fly up like this really quickly. You'll see this in a video here in just a second. And they make these circles here like this. And then they reverse their circle. And then they go up here and make more circles and on and on and on. You've seen this on your phones, right? What do you do when you coordinate your compass? You go like this, correct? Now, we used to think that this was an escape mechanism. They would fly up and fly off towards the sun, but they don't fly towards the sun. They fly in a direction. Eventually, they pick a direction over here. If I released them at this time, they would know by their sun compass that's time compensated where they would fly. They wouldn't fly here. They would still fly over there. The sun would be on their left, that's all. When you go towards night, it's on the right. And they fly over Lake Michigan. A lot of people didn't believe that they do that, but they do. So here's a video. And you don't have to drop them, but watch this butterfly. See how it goes straight up? Okay, there it is. It's going to make a circle, going around like this. Now it can see, and then it makes a flip. It goes around the other way, right? Clockwise, counterclockwise. Still looks like it's searching, doesn't it? It's not gliding. Some people thought this was a gliding mechanism. I lost it. There it is. Making more circles. A reversal over here continues to go. And it's right there. Now, this is where I lose it. It's right there. Can you guys see it? And right about there, The camera will follow it, but my eye did not. So it's going over here. And if you go to the top of the parking ramp over here at GRCC, you will see that the end product is right there southwest, right there. And it does it over and over and over again. And if you have a good set of really healthy butterflies, that's exactly what they will do. Oops. So you can put these on a chart, a circular statistical program, to find out where the major vector is for these guys to go. And it shows that it's right here. This is the average vector. These are number of butterflies that are flying. Some fly this way, but you know, it's a channel like this. It's not very big. So here's what I did years ago before it was illegal. I took butterfly eggs from California. Butterfly that had been washed and cleaned, butterfly eggs from Massachusetts, washed and cleaned, butterfly eggs from Michigan. This was like 21 years ago. And I reared them here in Grand Rapids. And this is what I get. They all go in the same pattern. Well, wouldn't you think that California would go a little different, like go west first and then south? Or maybe Massachusetts would go east and then south? But they didn't. They all did the same thing, which means that when I'm moving them back and forth, they don't have a map. They don't know where they are. They are following a direction, but they don't know where Indiana is from Illinois, from wherever. So that's a big thing. It was repeated in Canada and just a year ago, and they found that they had no direction back there either. So no map. So how do you get to these places, right? Now, you got to remember what I just showed you with the flying butterflies, right? You can put a number of things on there. You can say, well, they're escaping from sunlight. They're escaping from a predator, the person who releases a butterfly. They're doing all kinds of things, and that may be. But we have seen butterflies fly over Frankfurt, for example. When they get to the lake, they do the spiral like this. Wherever it's a broad expanse, they need to find a direction. And the magnetic field varies. It's not very strong. The magnet on your refrigerator is like 10 million times as strong as the magnetic field that's over the Earth. And the magnetic field, as you saw, went up like this, right? Well, they can read the so-called inclination, the angle to the Earth, but once they get up here, it flattens out and it's parallel to the Earth. They lose their direction. So it's not perfect. If you're flying south, it works. If you're flying south from South America, it works as well. These wings here, they've evolved to do a number of different things. For example, they can regulate the body temperature of these butterflies. You know, they warn you not to eat me or I'll kill you, that kind of thing. Or they attract mates with these wings. They warn other creatures, you eat me, and it's going to be death, right? So the wings have a multiple number of purposes, and so does the spiral, maybe. Or the spiral is solely for orientation. Remember all the chemistry I showed you and all the input from light and geomagnetic cues? Somebody's got to integrate it, right? It's going to be integrated in the brain, but you need a behavior to make this thing work. It's great if you got all the paraphernalia, but does it work in real life? So it used to be they would put these in revolving drums and the butterfly would fly and hit the drum, but they would be stationary. That doesn't tell you much in real life, right? So you can cut off the antenna, you can darken them, and the butterflies will still do the spiral and they will still pick a direction, maybe the wrong one though. So it means that they're looking for orientation, and they may go back and forth like this really fast, but the ones that we have that are intact always do the same thing. The best place I've ever had was at a place called Tuff Lake up north in Newaygo and Reed's Lake, although there were too many boats there that day, but they were doing incredible spirals up there, all of them the same. Oops. So we are the breadbasket of monarchs up in the Northeast. We produce virtually all the monarchs. To the west, Kansas, those places, they produce a lot of them too. But you go to Beaver Island and you will be inundated with monarchs every year. If you go to the Upper Peninsula, you are inundated with monarchs. Remember, up north, they have huge iron ore fields, right? Those are anomalies in a magnetic field that they will experience. And down in Michoacan, the same thing. They're in mountainous ore producing areas down there. And so sometimes I think bar magnet to bar magnet, right? They're this end to that end. Probably not true, but it's a good story. So when they migrate from Michigan, they fly across the lake, but they don't fly right away. They test it out. They'll go over the lake and they'll come back. Next day, they go a little farther, they come back. And then finally, they take off and go right towards Chicago. So that's 120 miles away, right? That's a long way. They better orient themselves correctly or they'll end up in Wisconsin or something. Not a good way to waste your time and your body fat. They mate up at Beaver Island and amongst the northern areas up there. This is a really old male with a newly emergent female. And you know it's late in the year, but they're going to squeeze off another brood because Beaver Island is surrounded by water and it obviously protects it somewhat thermally. And so you can get another brood up here, maybe 2 if it works real well. And sometimes, this is sad, but the butterflies try to fly across the lake too late in the day. If it's too late in the day and there's sun compassing out there, the sun reflects off the water like a mirror. You've seen it, right? Sunset. You call it glare. They call it confusion because when they fly there, they go, oh, which one is the sky? Which one is the water? They don't know. And they hit the water and they soak up really quickly and then they die. And you guys know what these are right here? Asian ladybird beetles, right? So they're very opportunistic. They clean up all these poor butterflies. This is from the Lake Michigan over here. And thousands, maybe millions die in the lake. I don't know. So how do you find the same roost every year? How do you go from Michigan, which means Great Lakes, to Michoacan, which means place of fishermen? It's kind of ironic that they sound the same, but one's in Ojibwa up here and the other one is Nahuatl down there. But it sounds like the same. They're going, they say 2,000 miles, but really they're not going, oh, let's go here, straight over here. Really, they're being blown by the wind. They're probably doing 3,000 or 4,000 miles in total. And that takes its course on fat reserves. So this reflects in where most of the butterflies are from that they have found down there in Michoacan. And that's because if you fly from Kansas, you're flying half the distance, right? You're more likely to be represented, less likely to be hit by a truck or a storm or something like that. So the likelihood is higher. I still think we have the greatest number. But sometimes bad things happen at the roost. So I'm going to show you this short video. Whoops, what happened? There we go. There we go. It's going to take a little bit. This is kind of a cool video. Now, we went down there in 2002 when they had the great die-off. And the great die-off was a result of these guys being up at 10,000 feet in the oil mill firs, and it rained on them, and then they flash froze, like freezing peas. So here's a day when we went down there. This is over spring break in February. You see what they're doing? Nothing, right? These guys are basking. This is a female. She's a little old at this point, but she'll make it through. And they sit on these roosts by the tens of thousands. Branches can break, and they come crashing down to the forest floor. Butterflies popping up all over the place, right? So I don't know what they're doing here. Are they actually orientating? I don't know. Some of them are circling. I really think that they're practicing their wing muscles because don't forget they're sitting on the trees there the whole winter. It takes a long time. So has anybody been down there? You got to go. This is Chinqua. It's the best one. It's because you got to go up there and pay a guy to rent a mule or a horse and then kind of walk up the hill there. And when this happened, we couldn't see it. So we had these signs that said sanctioned by Vicente Fox on our car. He was the president at the time. It was a total lie. We just made it up because we didn't want to be checked because class had a lot of expensive equipment. But look at these monarchs here. They're just unbelievable numbers. They find the same spots every year. How do they do that? I don't care what you're using. Sun compass, azimuthal position of the sun, geomagnetic cues. You're going down towards Texas and you're still flying there and you find these spots that are no bigger than Grand Rapids Community College. You've never seen it before. And when you migrate back in the spring, you're not going to see it again because you're not going to make it, right? And some of these die down there. Actually, they die by the millions. They're actually orioles and other birds that feed on them by taking out the fat bodies. And here's the death. Millions of butterflies ended up on the forest floor. They were this deep, you guys, this deep. You could pick them up with your hands, you know, thousands, all rotting. They smelled, you know. It wasn't a pleasant smell. So we thought maybe they have olfactory cues. When they come back, the next generation, they could say, oh, I smell grandma, or whatever, grandpa. So here they are. Isn't it amazing? Now, you can support Monarch Watch. This is by my advisor from the University of Kansas. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. There's other parts there. Never mind. You can support them just by sending your candy dollars for Christmas down to them, and they tag these things. And they've tagged them from all over eastern US, and they found out where they go. So look, I'm going to tell you another lie. Okay, you ready? So this group here is the eastern population. This is the western population. The western population migrates to the coast, and they stay in the Monterey pines over there, and in eucalyptus. Eucalyptus is not native to California. So they've been cutting some of these roost trees down. The numbers there are plummeted by 80%. But there are almost, well, there's well over 100. You see this blue line here? Roosts down there. They're small, sometimes thousands, sometimes just 100. But here's what I'm going to tell you. I think that is an incomplete migration. Because remember, I told you about the ones that I moved from here and here over to here, and they all flew in the same direction. It was like this, you guys, like that. And so these butterflies are doing the same thing, but they're isolated by California and the Sierras over here. They have no choice. They're not going to fly to Mexico. They're going to fly towards the coast because they're hell-bent on flying towards the coast, right? And that is an incomplete migration. Now, if there was a body of land off to the southwest, they would probably accumulate down there. Now, how do we know that might be true? Because right here in Arizona, in Phoenix, butterflies will migrate over here to Los Angeles, or they will migrate all the way down to Michoacan. They may go either place. So they can pick and choose. And then other monarchs stay here and breed. So you got all of them, right? Old ones coming down from the north to interbreed. You've got some going down to Mexico and others not doing anything at all. When you're going back in the spring, it's leapfrog, generation by generation. As the snow melts and the Asclepias pops up, this is what they do. If you put these old monarchs, and some of them are almost transparent, some of them I think actually make it all the way back from Michoacan, maybe to our neck of the woods by accident, because maybe they originally were from Kansas. But these are really old ones, and if you put them in a cage here, they all group up here to the east. And the ones in the fall, they all group over here to the west. So it's like a switch, right? If I'm young and I'm coming back from Mexico, I'm going to be over here to the east, where I can see the east cues. If I'm coming down in the fall, I'm going to go west or southwest. I have cages, and I'm sorry I don't have any pictures of this, but they line up on this southwest angle, right here, south-southwest, just like a row like you saw down there in Mexico. So they might be getting cues that way too, because setting suns and rising suns are known to set the clocks, right? Our clock is just getting back to normal, but these guys may actually be doing that. So a metapopulation is a group of populations that have scattered around the earth. Sometimes they're interbreeding, sometimes they're not. But right here, during the glaciation period, we have southern monarchs here, right next to all the islands of the Bahamas. We have Cuba over here, joined to the mainland, right here by Cancun and Merida. We have all these things that are locked in, and I think this is the bedrock, and this is where everything evolved. So in brief, because I try to stuff a lot of stuff into one talk. In brief, you have North America, you have South America. You have the isthmus connecting those two. You have an area 19 degrees north where it appears to be that you can find at least 2 distinct species of monarchs. And in Haiti, you find Cleophily and you find Ars. Both of them migrate up the mountains to Pico Duarte, and they form small roosts up there. So if that gave rise to altitudinal migration, could it not give rise to latitudinal migration? In other words, flying up and farther towards Texas or wherever, and then in South America, flying farther south and south towards Patagonia? Because don't forget, it's reversed. So I think that the metapopulation here was the original part of the speciation thing. So we have 3 species today. 2 are very dominant. ERIPPUS is still very common in South America, but our population is under extreme pressure because of different kinds of corn that might hurt them, you know, the loss of farmland, that kind of thing. And so I've noticed in Grand Rapids that people have been planting milkweeds and flowers, and that has helped a lot of them. We have a small pollinator garden down here. We have monarchs visiting there. They come through, remember, in around May. So you will see them in May when the milkweeds first start coming up. And then in August 15th and beyond, you will see waves of migrants, you know. They get smaller and smaller as you approach. But now we have migrants in November. November, that's unheard of, right? Where are they gonna go? These guys can't tolerate the frost. They're all gonna die. So, you know, that's global climate change, right? Maybe they'll adjust, I don't know. That's my story. So I'm done. Do you guys have any questions? Thank you very much. Why do they migrate? Was that a planted question? They migrate because they can't live, that's actually a very good question. They migrate because they can't live through the winter. So in the Andes, they can't live through the winters of the mountains, and up here, they can't live through our winters. They're basically a tropical butterfly. Exactly. Why not just go to Texas and, you know, Florida and call it a day? I don't know. They go back to their birthplace in Michoacan, right? They go up those mountains there at 10,000 feet. This is where they were born, ancestrally, all the way across the Caribbean. That's what I think. So, yes?
Is this working? Oh, yeah. We're taping this, and we want to get the questions on the video here. So.
We reared monarchs, not this past summer, but the one before. But then this summer we read that monarchs that are reared have a lesser ability to navigate.
That's not true.
Okay.
I have reared hundreds, thousands of monarchs every summer, and I do that just to see how they orientate up here. And they do really well. I think they were making a false assumption. And there's also one about if they feed on Asclepias curasivica, which is a tropical milkweed, that they won't have ability. But I don't think that's correct. I think that's some aberration of the method. So they'll be fine. Raise as many as you want.
In conjunction with that, we've always wondered how, because we did the Monarch Watch little circles that you put on them and then you tag them. How can that not affect them? I know that the stamps or the stickers are so light, but you'd think in comparison to the butterfly wing, it would still make a difference.
No, it doesn't. The butterfly weighs about an ounce, and these weigh just a fraction of a hundredth of an ounce. They're very, very light. And they adhere to the wings, you know, because the scales on monarchs are really tough. So the scales on those little butterflies I showed you, if you touch them, they'll rub off. On a monarch, you can handle them, you can put them to sleep, you can feed them. They're just really tough butterflies, which is another reason why they can migrate. You know, the other smaller ones can do the same, but you don't have to worry about tagging them. So through Monarch Watch, through Chip Taylor's program, it's a great program. He's done incredible stuff, you know, for the rest of the monarchs here. And I really think the reason why a lot of people are saving their milkweed, because I see it coming out of bushes all over the place now, is they finally know what milkweed looks like, right? And that's good, because then you can have monarchs there at least through the summer. Yeah, so those are good questions. Anybody else? More questions? Young lady in the back. Just kidding.
I have a question. If the global climate change is going to continue to warm things further north, are we going to see the expansion of the species into Canada and further?
I think that as it gets warmer and the seasons get longer, like they are here, that in Canada, you know, milkweed is advantageous. They will go wherever they can. Wherever it's warm enough and long enough season, and the monarchs will follow. I think monarchs are just really good creatures for invasive creatures, basically is what they are, but you know, I don't want to use that word. So yeah, I do think they'll expand the range here in this country too. And obviously, these are old pathways, right? These are pathways that began after the Pleistocene glaciation period. Glaciers retreated and they're going back and forth. That's why I asked the question, is this a range expansion or is it a true migration? How did it start? Sounds like a range expansion would be the logical thing to look at. And now it's a permanent thing that's locked in with genes and all this complicated biochemistry. It's pretty cool stuff.
So with the monarchs, what is the biggest threat that they're facing now? Because I know populations were down for a while.
They were down a lot, and for a number of reasons. Down in Michoacan, a lot of political trouble with, you know, logging, illegal logging in the reserves down there. It's also a dangerous place down there because of the cartels, not just for marijuana, but for avocados and stuff like that. But there's problems down there. And when you cut the forest down at 10,000 feet, that is the umbrella that protects them, you know, from the cold of outer space, if you will. So there's infrared energy in the ground that will reflect on those trees, especially along the tree limbs and that kind of thing. It's a perfect thermal environment for them. Keeps them moist, but fairly warm. They don't freeze. So that's one problem. And then in the midsection, over farming, you know, when I went to graduate school, it was like you don't farm to the very edge of something. There were a lot of areas where you could grow milkweed just by accident, and so that was good. And up here, you know, global warming and the fact that we have invasive species of flowers here that take away some of the goldenrods and stuff like that may affect them as well. There's all kinds of things. But this year was a good year. I don't know if you guys noticed it, but there were a lot of monarchs in the summer, and they were all over the place, and they gave rise to a lot of progeny, and so we're hopeful. I haven't heard reports out of Mexico yet, but I heard preliminary things that they were pretty far up. So they go in these sinusoidal curves too, you know, common, rare, common, rare. But you don't want to go so far to where they go to zero and that's it. Now what could you do if they did? Well, conceivably, since they're the same species and they use the same method of orientation, you could rear monarchs from, say, California and reestablish a population. Wouldn't quite be the same, but you know, if you're desperate, that might be what you do. So, you know, rearing monarchs, I don't have any problem with it. Some people might, but I don't. Did that answer the question, or did I ramble again? No. Okay. So other questions? Anything? Yes? Oh, sorry. Sorry, Tim.
We went down to see the lunar eclipse a couple years ago, and we drove straight south out of Michigan.
Who's talking?
Oh, right here.
Oh, right here. Okay,
Yeah.
sorry, I couldn't find you.
We drove straight south through Indiana to Kentucky, and I was really surprised to see nothing. I shouldn't have been, but nothing but corn and soybean as far as the eye could see.
Yeah.
And there were no meadows, nothing
Right.
along the periphery of these crops.
Right.
It has to be a food desert if
It
you're
is.
a monarch.
It is a desert in several different ways. First of all, Asclepius won't grow there, and second of all, the flowers are gone. So here's what's going on. In some areas of the Midwest, they're actually planting rows of flowers between their corn or whatever that they just leave, and apparently that's really doing wonders. So, you know, the best thing you can do, I think, is to plant more flowers for the fall so that when they come through later and later, they've got some nectar to pick up. They require fat, and they can't make fat out of thin air. They have to have nectar to do that. They take those sugars and metabolize them and turn them into fat bodies, which is easier to carry. So yeah, that's what happens. It's kind of disturbing almost, but yeah. Other questions? My zoology students, anybody? Anybody? Yes! No, I'm kidding. Isn't it terribly pointed out? Yes?
May I ask about the microphone? I guess. How closely related is the viceroy?
The viceroy is not close related at all. It's an nymphalid in the same family, but it's in a group that, the genus is Limonitis. So in that group, there's the orange butterflies that look like a monarch. We think they're both distasteful, so they're Mullerian mimics. But in that same group is one called the red-spotted purple. We have a lot of them in Grand Rapids. They feed on willow and things like that. And they're purple, and they supposedly mimic another group of swallowtail butterflies that's pretty toxic. So it's not very close, but when you see them together, like I've seen them up at Beaver Island, big viceroys, and I could have sworn it was a monarch. And I can also tell you that I was at a professional meeting once where we had a brochure that was printed out. I will not mention the name of the meeting, but it was a very important one. It was kind of funny because you can see how you could easily make that mistake, but it was saving the monarch, and on the thing was a viceroy. So that's how good it is, right? And isn't it amazing that all these other bugs and beetles that feed on Asclepias, the milkweeds, are orange and black? You know, they are. Even the aphids. The aphids got the milkweeds really bad this year. So they're orange and black. It's crazy. So it's not closely related, and these mimicry complexes have not been thoroughly, looked at. So there's a lot of room for people to investigate. A couple papers don't make a truth, right? You need a few more papers. So it's very encouraging. Yes?
I just wonder what the life expectancy is of a monarch.
If it's in the summer, they can go, 10 weeks. If it's in the fall migratory form, and this is the same is true in Argentina, they can do almost 9 months. So they sit there in the refrigerator for 6 months. They're there right now, and they will start breaking up when the, vernal equinox comes, when, the day lengths are relatively equal. And after they've had a cold period of maybe 3 weeks, they will then change directions and fly north. So Texas will get them first, and then they branch out, I think they're always migrating, is what I was trying to show you with that one cage thing. I think they're constantly migrating. They spend the overwintering period in the mountains, and then, they reacquire their spots. But they don't go back to the same location they came from necessarily. They could, but I don't know.
If they're useful at all.
Monarchs?
Yeah, like the toxicity they have, has that been used for any medicinal experiments for humans? Because we're always looking for exotic sort of chemical structures to do this and that, and a lot of them are poison, but they end up being
I agree. I don't know anybody who's looked at the medicinal purposes of monarchs, but they have cardiac glycosides, which can give you an irregular heartbeat. But not all vertebrates are affected by that. And I did hear an entomologist once who told me he used to eat them, and he didn't have any after effects. But my luck would be I would eat when I'd be on the floor. So, food allergies, I don't want to make the monarch one of my food allergies, right? So, yeah, I don't know. It would be really cool to look at, though, because all the cardiac glycosides are taken from milkweeds, and some of them are so poisonous that monarchs can't, complete their development on them. That kills them, yeah. And some milkweeds are so non-poisonous, they're kind of mimicking things that are toxic. So they're not all the same spectrum of poison or toxic. Any other questions? I think it'd be really good if you guys went to South America, the younger students, or my older students, and found those roosts. I'm telling you, there's a big prize there at the end of that, right? Find those roosts down there because no one's found them. They gotta be there, right? It's just like in 1975, nobody knew about monarchs in Michoacan. Nobody. They were discovered by a young Mexican lady who was with an American at that time. She was the first one that saw the monarchs. But the natives said, hey, they're just monarchs. We've seen them forever. We got a couple holidays. You want to join? Right? So.
Why did you get so interested in it anyway?
My brother and I don't know. He was the more adventuresome person, and so I followed him. And so we collected butterflies, we collected coins, So we just went everywhere. My mother always was scared to death whenever we left the house. So, I almost drowned in Reed's Lake once. I came back full of mud, and she was so mad at my brother. What are you doing? So I've fallen out of trees, just looking for butterflies. It's good activity, right? Keeps you thin, and you have a good life, right? You have a good life. I mean, what's more important than chasing butterflies? A job? No, I don't think so. That's not important. Anybody else? How about my 151 students? Come on. Did you have one? Seriously? Give a question.
I know.
Okay, so how long does it take for the juvenile hormone to stop being produced by the monarchs?
It takes probably a couple weeks for the titer to go down. I really don't know how long it takes, but it eventually declines after they emerge. And so, you know, we used to say they stop reproducing, but that's not true, because I've had butterflies reproducing in October. They're still mating. So again, it's like a population thing. They typically stop, but not all. And if they mate, I wonder, they pick up a big spermatophore. It's a lot of energy given from the male to the female. They wonder if that gets them through the flight, right, going south. Males tend to die off earlier in the spring. And amazingly enough, sometimes it's the weaker, older males that mate with the monarchs first. They're more aggressive. And then the ones that can fly further north, apparently, they're after that. So they mate multiple times. And every time they mate, they get energy for doing that. And they have the weirdest mating system. I don't know if I should tell you this, but it's not like they bring them flowers. Monarch males, like in my yard, will patrol. They'll fly around. And when a female emerges a few days later, they just tackle them in the air and bring them down to the ground. It is not romantic. So others of the group, you know, the Danaids, they have what they call hair pencils from the abdomen. They got a lot of pheromones on there. They fly back and forth and okay, look at this, you know, that kind of stuff. Monarchs don't do that. Interesting, huh? Aggressive.
I had a question about the Plexippus species of monarch that you said were found in North America and the rest of the world.
Yeah, pretty much.
Were they transported by people from North America to the rest of the world, or is it a natural distribution of the monarch due to tectonic plates moving or whatever?
No, it was probably partly artificial on ships. You know, in World War II, they used to take the milkweed pods, you know, and they would make mattresses out of them and pillows and that kind of stuff. So milkweed would escape. And then, you know, if monarchs were on a ship, if you go to Lake Michigan, you can often find ships that have monarchs up on the mast. So who knows how they got there. It could be eggs. They have milkweed-like plants in Australia and New Zealand, and those are the ones that migrate there. They have different names for them down there. They call them the wanderers because they are. You know, so, you know, we don't know exactly how they got from place to place. So hurricanes could bring you up to, you know, Europe, right? If you've got milkweed in your garden, and a lot of them do, you could fly south to Africa, to Morocco. So we don't know. It'd be a great thing to study. I'm glad it happened. I mean, you know, if we did that ourselves, we would be in jail. But as long as it happens naturally, it's okay, right?
I was just wondering, do they have the same quantity of eggs as female women does?
No.
Or do they have a lower quantity?
Female women are born with like 400,000 eggs, but they're in a state of suspended animation at meiosis 1, whereas monarchs, maybe they have 1,000 over their lifetime. So they lay these eggs and then that's pretty much it. So, yeah. No, they actually have eggs that they will make, as long as they're mating, they will produce more eggs. But 1,000 seems to be the limit, which is quite a few. Yeah.
All right.
Did you have a question? From the zoo. You have to. Oh, that's true. So you're good. Yes, right behind you, Tim. Sorry.
Me? Where? Oh.
Thanks, Declan, for pointing me out. So I worked with the monarchs at John Bell Zoo this summer, and we lost a lot of our monarchs due to parasites, wasps laying eggs.
Oh yeah, you had chalcids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess, do you have any stories to go along with that, or like why 1 year would be?
It just happens, you know, everything's serendipity. It's kind of like one year you have OE infections and the next year you got chalcids. You never know. It just takes one to find them because they lay multiple eggs on your larvae too. So yeah, so it wiped out a lot of yours, that's what I heard. Yeah. But you guys are the ones that found caterpillars October 20th, just a year ago. And they weren't quite mature yet. And I remember I brought them home and I reared them and I kept them alive in my greenhouse until like January. They were incredible. And then I didn't know what to do with them, so yeah, it's amazing.
All right, so could we thank,
No,
another question? No? Okay. Let's thank Dr. Douglas one more time.
Well, thank you.